What's up everybody, Fortexfiend here, and welcome back again to another video on SD Gundam G Generation Eternal. In this video, I decided to do something pretty fun. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking all of the banners from Q1, or I like to call it Quarter 1, upon the game's launch, and I'm going to be evaluating them from worst all the way to the best. Now, before we get started, I do want to remind you guys that if you enjoy what you see on this channel, if you want to support me out a little bit, please hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell so that way you guys are not missing out on future uploads. Leave a like on the videos, or a dislike if you dislike the video, and comment, leave a comment, because it does definitely help your boy out. I love making these videos for you guys, and if you love SD Gundam G Generation Eternal, I'd love to have you as a part of my community. Don't forget to check out my Discord community, where the links are left in the video description as well as the pinned comments. And also don't forget to check out my Twitch channel, where I not only stream SD Gundam G Generation Eternal, but other mecha games, retro RPGs, retro beat 'em ups, and fighting games. I do all of that. I love doing all of that for you guys. All right, so we're going to go ahead and talk about the Q1 banners, rating them from worst all the way to the best. Now, a little caveats that I want to cover before I get started. So I'm only going to be covering the banners that introduced brand new units and brand new UR support ships. So I'm not going to be including those banners that they randomly dropped during the Master Leagues, where, for example, New Gundam was at a rate up, and then the other one was Crossbones, because one, no one is supposed to be pulling on those banners unless you really, really want to. And two, those units are already in the standard gacha, so there's no reason for me to discuss those. Those are definitely banners that you shouldn't have been investing in when they were out, unless you really, really love those units. So those banners are going to be omitted. And I am going to be including the current banner that is out right now, because I do feel like it kind of does play into the Q1 portion of the events for the game. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started with what I believe is the worst banner that we got for Q1 for this game. And it really pains me to say this, but it is the one featuring Death Scythe Hell Custom with Duo and Build Strike with Reiji alongside Lucretia Noin. Now, full disclosure, I don't think Duo and Death Scythe and Build Strike are bad units. It's just the impact that they made when they came out, it wasn't nearly as much as we've seen as with the other banners. Now, hear me out on this. I do think Death Scythe has a very unique niche when it comes to being a defensive type bruiser unit, because the way they designed Death Scythe is that it does a lot of damage upon counter attacking, and it also has like its own unique evasion, where if it does decide to evade, its evasion will be increased. However, in Master League Season 1, when Tough as Nails was the featured tag, most of the UR units generally selected their EX abilities that usually have absolute hit. So that evasion was also kind of, it wasn't really very useful in my opinion. And not only that, but Death Scythe's range all the way up to 3 made it very difficult to kind of use him and position him, especially when you're up against units that have a range of 4 and 5. So units can essentially stay out of its range, attack it, and not get counterattacked. Like, the best thing that this thing was able to do was like defend, because its defense is actually really high, its mitigation is really good, and if it did manage to counterattack, it hit really hard because its EX ability is actually really, really strong, stronger than some attacker type units. The pilot itself, Duo Maxwell, is actually a pretty solid pilot, has increased critical, also can heal, and has attack burst. Very, very offensive defender. And then Build Strike itself has a map attack that has, the beam damage up, debuff, and it also has physical damage up debuff, which, I think it was pretty cool that they gave it both of those, one in an AoE form, the other one in single target. Reiji is a solid pilot, but I do think there were better UR supporter pilots that we got. And I'm sorry, but Lucretia Noin's ship, it's average at best. There is one other warship that we're going to talk about in another banner that I think is actually worse than this one, but this was definitely not one of the better supporter warships that we got. And thank God it wasn't limited, because if this thing was limited, I would be questioning that, because when we get to the actual limited ship, you'll see that this one was not the greatest. So unfortunately, the banner with Death Scythe and Build Strike, for me, with the current content that we had and with the impact that it made, it was definitely the weakest banner for me. Coming in next is going to be Anavogato GPO-2A and Char Zaku 2. And that particular warship, which I believe it was specialized units for that one, where the tag was the one that was covered for that. That warship is probably the worst that we got because there's not a lot of units in that right now. Now, later down the line, this warship might receive a lot more value once we see more powerful units within specialized units. But for now, it's definitely the weakest, in my opinion, in terms of the new UR supporter warships that we got. Now, in terms of the units themselves, a GPO-2A as a unit, I think is very strong. It has a physical damage up debuff, and it also has a defense down. It also has that incredibly powerful nuke. Too bad you could only use it once. So the unit itself is good. Annabelle Gato himself, I think, is like middle of the road in terms of like a supporter. There's two other supporters, actually three, that I think that are better than him as pilots. But what he does have that stands out is he has the highest range stat out of all of the other supporter pilots, actually in a majority of the pilots, even considering like attackers and defenders. So he has that going for him, but I think he's definitely middle of the road. He's not the best supporter pilot, but he's like middle of the road, like above average. Sharzaku 2 I think is a great unit. Really good long range game. The pilot itself is all right, does have sway and all that. But I think as a unit overall, we just got things that were better. But it is a very, very good DPS unit. I just don't think it stands out as much compared to some of the other DPS units that we've seen. So this is going to be the banner that's right for me that ranks right after the Death Cyclone. Next is going to be the one that features Zeta and the O along with the Saikamu ship. So Zeta is probably one of the hardest hitting units in the game, specifically if you put it with Camille because of the increased critical and all that, and just how hard its EX ability hits. It can also transform if needed. The Saikamu ship is actually pretty solid because it can actually cater to units such as, for example, the Sazabi is really, really good. And that unit has like tags that you could use with like multiple different powerful ships. So it's a really, really good UR supporter warship. It does have support for a lot of the more powerful UR units that we currently have available to us. And then afterwards, the O itself as a unit is really, really strong. However, I do think the value in pulling the O actually comes with a pilot. Paptimus Scirocco arguably is probably one of the best supporters in the game. There's only one that I think is better than him, and we'll get to that because that pilot is actually on one of these banners. But Paptimus Scirocco is a very, very powerful supporter pilot. I've been using that pilot. That pilot has made a lot of impact not only for PvP, but for PvE content as well. So I would say that this banner is next in terms of like, the rankings. Very, very powerful DPS unit with Zeta. Just not nearly as impactful as the next two that we're about to talk about. And Paptimus Scirocco with the O is definitely strong, with the pilot himself being the prize if you happen to pull that unit. But all in all, solid banner, great warship. Okay, next is going to be the very current banner that we have, which features the Hainu Gundam, which is a limited unit, a limited attacker. Our second limited UR supporter warship with Bright Noah and Rockhalem. And of course, the Force Impulse, which has the pilot Shin. Now, hands down, Shin, in my opinion, is probably the best supporter pilot in the game. While he does not have access to that MP increase, giving him that super high tension right off the bat, he has access to sway, he has access to boost range, and he has access to attack burst. I mean, what more can you ask for from a pilot? And then not only that, but if he's piloting his own unit, he has that capability of restoring 50% of his health anytime his health drops 50% or below. So essentially, you need to technically kill him twice because he has like a lifeline available to him. So he's really, really good. And if you put him in his own unit, which generally you should be, very, very strong. And then afterwards, what's more to say about Hainu Gundam? A lot of damage. It definitely, in my opinion, is probably the hardest, one of the harder hitters in terms of like damage. I think it out damages Zeta. In terms of being like an attacker unit. And especially if you put the attacker Amurore pilot, which is an insanely strong pilot in his own right. He gets that incredible passive where if he's piloting his own unit, his like beam, his beam weapons and one other weapon type has like a automatic range increase of 1. And not only that, he also has that innate chance step +1, which is incredibly strong. They did balance out his skills by giving him energy regen, but it doesn't really matter because he has MP increase and he has the more powerful attack burst, which is insanely strong. So in my opinion, Hainu Gundam definitely is probably, I would say in terms of like damage, either number 1 or number 2, because at some situations Zeta could definitely outdamage it, but all in all, incredibly powerful. And then the actual support ship, while it is disappointing that it is energy restoration rather than HP. It is still a limited warship. The tag on this one is going to be new type machine, which there are a handful of those new type machines that are available. You have Sazabi, you have Hainu, you have new Gundam. So you do have an available roster right there of units that you can use with this warship. Not as good as some of the other warships we've seen. I actually think that Saikamu is better than this one, even though this one technically has better stat increases because it's limited, but it's still a pretty solid ship overall. So this one for me ranks as the number 2 banner. And hands down, this shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone for those of us that have been playing this game since this particular banner went live. But if you pulled for Strike Freedom and Eternal Lacus especially, my goodness, have we seen these units and the warship currently, we know right now where the game is at, age very, very well. A Strike Freedom, all in all, fantastic range damage dealer, really, really good unit. And then you throw Kira there, who Kira in his own right is a very, very powerful pilot, has attack burst, has that better version of Sway, which you technically can use twice because his cost less. So all in all, very powerful. But what makes these units especially really stand out is that warship. One-shot killer right now is still arguably the most powerful tag in the game. I mean, even in Master League Season 1, while that wasn't the featured tag, there were people running one-shot killer even without the bonuses from the tags, and they were still killing it. I mean, it was crazy just how powerful this ship is. And the fact that it has HP restoration just made it that much more valuable because in PvP, HP restoration is far better. And even to a degree, I would say in PvE, like especially for Eternal Road, I would rather heal my health than heal my energy because unless fights are taking way too long, when it comes to Eternal Road, you're literally only given 3 turns. So, you know, you should be able to finish it, and you should have enough energy to be able to do that. So, in my opinion, this is still hands down the best banner that we've received thus far. I'm looking forward to seeing if there is a banner that is going to dethrone this, because so far this banner, for those of you that did pull on it, I pulled on it. There's a lot of free-to-play players that pulled on it, even light spenders. And if you got Eternal, if you got Strike Freedom, and even Justice Gundam put in a lot of work during Season 0 and is probably going to be putting in work again with the upcoming Season 2. All in all, fantastic banner. Arguably the best banner that we got. Ranks number 1 in terms of like the Q1 events and banners that we got currently in the game. But that is going to be my ranking so far. So number 1, we have this banner with Strike Freedom. Number 2 is the Hainu. Number 3 is the banner with Zeta. Number 4 is GPO2A. And at the bottom, which makes me really sad, but I have to be objective here. And again, if you guys disagree with me, let me know in the comment section below. But arguably the worst banner is going to be the one with Death Sight. But let me know what you guys think overall. How would you guys rank these banners in terms of like their impact and the usability of the units and the warships? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions. Thank you guys again for watching. Stay tuned for the next video and stay blessed, everybody.